What if I told you there's a specific technique that could increase your partner's chance of reaching orgasm during intercourse from around 30% to over 75%? And it's backed by actual research. Stay with me. Welcome back to Prime Health Lab. I'm here to break down the science of men's health, intimacy, and performance in a way that actually makes sense today. We're diving into something called the CAT technique, the Coital Alignment Technique, and whether it lives up to the claims. If you're looking to level up your intimate life and understand what actually works, hit that subscribe button. You're in the right place. Let's get into it. All right, so before we talk about whether this works or not, let's understand what we're even dealing with here. The CAT technique, which stands for Coital Alignment Technique, was developed back in the 1980s by a psychotherapist named Edward Eichel. And the reason he developed it wasn't random. It was based on a pretty significant problem that a lot of couples face. Here's the reality. Studies consistently show that only about 25 to 30% of women reliably experience orgasm from penetrative intercourse alone. That means roughly 70 to 75% don't. And that's not because anything is wrong with them or you. It's just basic anatomy and physiology. The female orgasm, in most cases, requires clitoral stimulation. The clitoris has around 8,000 nerve endings, more than twice what's in the penis, and it's the primary source of sexual pleasure for most women. Now, standard intercourse, what most people do naturally, doesn't provide consistent or direct stimulation to that area. That's the gap the CAT technique was designed to bridge. So what is it exactly? Think of it as a modified missionary position. Instead of the traditional in and out thrusting motion, the CAT technique involves a few key adjustments. First, the man shifts his entire body upward, so his pelvis rides higher on his partner's body. This means your chest might be closer to her shoulder rather than directly aligned chest to chest. Your pelvis should be positioned so that the base of your penis and your pubic bone maintain consistent contact with her clitoral area. Second, instead of thrusting in the traditional sense, both partners rock together. It's a coordinated, rhythmic grinding motion. You're moving as one unit, back and forth, maintaining that pressure and friction on the clitoris throughout. The movement is less about depth and more about sustained contact and rhythm. Third, your partner wraps her legs around your thighs, not your waist. This creates the right angle and pressure. You both move together. She tilts her pelvis upward as you rock forward, and you tilt slightly back as she rocks towards you. It's a dance, essentially. Now, why does this matter from a physiological standpoint? Because it directly addresses the anatomical reality we just talked about. Most women need clitoral stimulation to reach orgasm. The CAT technique ensures that stimulation is constant, rhythmic, and sustained rather than intermittent or indirect. It's not about discovering some secret trick. It's about aligning your movements with how her body actually responds to pleasure. And here's something important. This isn't about performance or proving anything. It's about connection, communication, and creating a better experience for both of you. When both partners are fully engaged and satisfied, the entire intimate experience becomes more fulfilling. It's not a one-sided thing. So the CAT technique is really about bridging that anatomical gap with intention and awareness. Now, does this mean traditional intercourse doesn't work? No. Does it mean every woman needs this? Also no. But it does mean that if you've noticed your partner has difficulty reaching orgasm during intercourse, or if you want to explore ways to enhance intimacy, this is a scientifically grounded approach worth understanding. And in the next section, we'll talk about the actual research behind it and whether the claims hold up under scrutiny. All right, so now that you understand what the CAT technique is and why it exists, let's talk about the evidence. Does this actually work, or is it just another overhyped bedroom tip that sounds good in theory but falls flat in practice? Let's look at what the research tells us. The original study that put the CAT technique on the map was published in 1988 by Edward Eichel and his colleagues in the Journal of Sex and Marital Therapy. Now, this wasn't a massive study. We're talking about a relatively small sample size, but the results were significant enough to get attention. In his research, Eichel worked with women who had difficulty achieving orgasm during intercourse. These were women who could reach orgasm through other means, like manual or oral stimulation, but not during penetrative sex. After teaching couples the CAT technique and having them practice it, he found that 77% of the women in the study were able to achieve orgasm during intercourse. That's a dramatic shift from the baseline of around 25 to 30% that we see in the general population. So on paper, that looks pretty compelling. But here's where we need to be careful and think critically. The study had limitations. It was a small sample size, it wasn't a massive randomized controlled trial, and there wasn't extensive follow-up research to replicate these findings on a larger scale. That doesn't mean the technique doesn't work. It just means we need to interpret the results with a balanced perspective. The research is promising, but it's not the final word. That said, from a purely physiological and mechanical standpoint, the CAT technique makes complete sense. Let's break down why. When you use the CAT technique, the consistent pressure and rocking motion stimulates both the external clitoris and the internal structures. The base of the penis and the pubic bone maintain contact with the clitoral area throughout the movement, creating sustained stimulation rather than intermittent contact. This is key. Orgasm typically requires consistent rhythmic stimulation. Start and stop stimulation, which is common with traditional thrusting, can make it harder to build toward climax. Think of it like this. Imagine trying to build momentum on a swing. If you push rhythmically and consistently, the swing builds height and momentum. But if you push randomly, sometimes hard, sometimes soft, sometimes not at all, the swing never really gets going. Sexual arousal and orgasm work similarly. Consistent, rhythmic stimulation allows arousal to build progressively toward orgasm. The CAT technique is designed to provide that consistency. There's also a psychological component here that's worth mentioning. A lot of women experience pressure or anxiety around orgasm during intercourse. They might feel like they're taking too long, or that something is wrong with them, or that their partner is getting tired or frustrated. This performance anxiety can actually inhibit orgasm. The CAT technique, because it's slower and more synchronized, creates a different dynamic. It requires both partners to be present, coordinated, and focused on the sensation rather than the outcome. This can reduce anxiety and create a more relaxed, connected experience, which ironically makes orgasm more likely. Now, does the CAT technique work for everyone? No. And that's an important reality to acknowledge. Individual anatomy varies significantly. Some women have a clitoris that's positioned closer to the vaginal opening, which might make the CAT technique more effective. Others have a clitoris that's positioned further away, which might mean the technique provides less direct stimulation. Body size, flexibility, and personal preference also play a role. What feels amazing for one person might feel awkward or uncomfortable for another. There's also been some anecdotal and clinical feedback from sex therapists who use the CAT technique with clients. Many report positive results, particularly for couples who are motivated and communicative. The technique tends to work best when both partners are willing to practice, communicate about what feels good, and adjust based on feedback. It's not a quick fix you try once and master. It requires some coordination and patience. One more thing worth noting. The CAT technique isn't just about the physical mechanics. It's also about slowing down and being intentional. In a culture that often emphasizes fast, intense, performance-driven sex, the CAT technique offers a different approach. It's slower, more deliberate, and more about sustained pleasure than explosive intensity. For some couples, this shift in pace and focus is just as valuable as the physical technique itself. All right, so you understand what the CAT technique is, you know the science behind it. Now let's talk about the practical side. How do you actually implement this? What do you say to your partner? What should you expect, and how do you make this work in a way that feels natural and not like you're following a manual? First things first, communication. This is non-negotiable. You cannot successfully implement the CAT technique or any new intimate technique without talking to your partner about it. And here's how to approach that conversation. Don't spring it on her in the moment. Don't try to surprise her with a new technique during sex that can feel jarring and awkward. Instead, bring it up in a relaxed, non-sexual setting. You might say something like, "Hey, I came across something interesting about ways to make sex more pleasurable for both of us. Would you be open to trying something new together?" Keep it light, curious, and collaborative. You're not suggesting this because something is wrong. You're exploring it because you want to enhance what's already there. Now let's walk through the mechanics step by step. Start in a standard missionary position. You're on top, she's on her back. This is your baseline. From here, you're going to make a few adjustments. First, shift your entire body upward. You want your pelvis to ride higher on her body. Your chest might end up closer to her shoulder or upper chest rather than aligned directly with her chest. This upward shift is crucial because it changes the angle of contact. Next, focus on where your pelvis is in relation to hers. The base of your penis and your pubic bone should be in consistent contact with her clitoral area. You're not aiming for deep penetration here, you're aiming for sustained contact and pressure. Think of it less like thrusting and more like grinding or rocking your hips, and her hips should move together in a synchronized rhythm. Here's where her participation becomes really important. She should wrap her legs around your thighs, not your waist. This creates the right angle and leverage. As you rock forward, she tilts her pelvis upward to meet you. As you rock back, she rocks toward you. You're moving as one unit, creating a continuous wave-like motion. The penetration stays relatively shallow, and the focus is on maintaining that clitoral contact throughout the entire movement. Now, this is going to feel different from traditional intercourse, and that's the point. It's slower, it's more deliberate, and it requires coordination. Don't expect to nail it on the first try. It's going to feel a bit awkward at first, and that's completely normal. You might need to adjust your position, change the angle, or shift your rhythm. That's all part of the learning process. Laugh about it if you need to keep it light. The goal isn't perfection, it's exploration. One of the most important things you can do during this is check in with your partner. Ask her what feels good. Does she feel the stimulation where she needs it? Is the pressure too much or too little? Is the rhythm working for her? This feedback is gold. Let's talk about pacing and duration. The cat technique is generally slower than traditional intercourse. Because the movement is a rocking grind rather than deep thrusting, you're not going to reach orgasm as quickly. This is actually a benefit for many men who struggle with premature ejaculation. The slower pace and reduced intensity can help you last longer, but it also means you need to be patient. Building arousal and reaching orgasm with this technique might take more time, especially in the beginning. That's okay. The goal is sustained pleasure, not a race to the finish line. And let's be real about the physical demands. The cat technique can be tiring, especially for the person on top. You're using your core, your legs, and your arms to maintain the position and the rhythm. If you start to feel fatigued, it's okay to take a break. Switch to a different position or transition to manual or oral stimulation. There's no rule that says you have to use the cat technique from start to finish. You can incorporate it as part of a larger, intimate experience. One last thing, and this is crucial. The cat technique, like any sexual technique, is not a magic bullet. It's not going to fix deeper issues in a relationship. It's not going to create intimacy where there isn't any. And it's not a substitute for communication, emotional connection, and mutual respect. Sexual satisfaction is about so much more than mechanics. It's about trust, vulnerability, presence, and connection. The cat technique is a tool that can enhance physical pleasure, but it works best in the context of a healthy, communicative, and connected relationship. So here's the practical takeaway. Talk to your partner. Approach it with curiosity and openness. Start in missionary, shift your body upward, focus on maintaining clitoral contact, and rock together in a synchronized rhythm. Check in with her, adjust based on feedback, and be patient with the learning curve. And remember, This is about exploration and connection, not performance or perfection. If it works, great. If it doesn't, you've still learned something valuable about each other. All right, so there you have it. The CAT technique, what it is, the science behind it, and how to actually use it. This isn't about gimmicks or quick fixes. It's about understanding anatomy, communicating with your partner, and being intentional about creating pleasure for both of you. Whether you try this technique or not, the bigger lesson here is simple. Great intimacy comes from curiosity, communication, and a willingness to learn and adapt together. If you found this helpful, do me a favor and hit that like button. Drop a comment and let me know if there are other topics you want me to break down. And if you're serious about leveling up your health, your energy, and your intimate life, subscribe to Prime Health Lab. We're here every week with real science-backed information that actually helps. No hype, no BS, just clarity. I'll see you in the next one. Stay strong.
Prime Health Lab is dedicated to men's internal health. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.